Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Prachadine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Is today or tomorrow the Purnima? Today. So this is the final, yesterday was the final day of Kartik. Today. Purnima marks the transition. If so, it's the first day of the next month, but it's the last day of the previous month. So we're continuing with the Putana pastime. And where we ended up yesterday was continuation. There's two classes that were describing the purification procedure, focusing, there's some manual, but mainly it's sound vibration purification. And of Krishna, and then Mother Jasoda was given Krishna to place in her lap, and she began to feed him, and he was peaceful and rested, and so everything was nice. So we had some discussion because of the verse about different elements that are minimized, negative influences that are minimized or eliminated by the holy name. And there was some interesting discussion about ghosts. So with a little bit of research, there's some writing by Bhaktivinoda Thakur about ghosts and the holy name. And I'll go chronologically. These first two are taken from his, you can call it as an autobiography. He wrote to one of his sons, Lalit Kumar, about events of his life, chronological events of his life. And this first one and the second one are directly written by him in the earlier stage of his life. And I didn't go to see what the context, what his age was, but young. One day, I went to eat gamarul fruit in the garden near my grandfather's parlor. I heard that a ghost lives in the fruit tree. And on that day, I ran away in fear of the ghost. Another day, I thought that if some remedy could be effected, then I could go and eat the fruit without fear of the ghost. In the hot weather, the gamarul fruit is very tasty. Little boy wants to taste the fruit. I made inquiries of many people about how to deal with ghosts, and no one said there was no such thing as ghosts. Being very disturbed, I asked Vachaspati Mahashaya, who said that ghosts were a particular form of living being, that their form is of the wind, and their eyes are like kuncha fruit, very small and red. Hearing the words of Vachaspati, I became even more afraid of ghosts. But Where there is no gummarule, there is no eating. The mother at Chiba was very expert in the occult. She was an exorcist for some people, and she oversaw the storage room of my grandfather. I questioned her. Upon questioning her, she informed me that there is no fear of ghosts when one chants the name of Ram. She called for Jaya Kali, and a servant appeared who said the same thing. By way of experiment, I went to the site of the gummarule tree, calling the name of Ram over and over again, and I saw no evidence of a ghost in any fashion. Knocking down some fruit, I ate 2 quarters. I understood that the name of Ram was protection against the ghost. At dusk, I was always utter Ram Nam. When walking about in the streets and alleys, I always chanted Ram Nam. I obtained great satisfaction in my mind, and for many days after, I took this medicine against the ghost. I heard that a ghost living in the Homa building, lived in the Homa building, place of worship. Uttering the name of Ram, I chased the ghost away from the puja building. Now, I would not be afraid to go outside at dusk. And then a little bit later, chronologically, this is not his writing because he's speaking of, the text speaks of Kedarnath, which is him. Kedarnath was transferred to a town called Champaran. He's a judge now. There, a Brahma Daitya, a type of ghost, inhabited a great banyan tree while being worshipped by many degraded people. One day, the father of a famous scholar came to Kedarnath for alms, at which time Kedarnath at once employed him in reading the Bhagavatam under the shade of the banyan tree, which was inhabited by the ghost. After 1 month, the Bhagavatam was completed, at which point the tree crashed to the ground, causing the ghost's permanent disappearance. Everyone was thankful for this, except a few dishonest persons who were worshipping the ghost. Now that's described a little bit differently in Rupa Vilasa's writing, the 7th Goswami, but it's the same principle. Then here's from Bhakti Siddhanta Vaibhav. In 1885, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur took Bimala, that's Bhakti Siddhanta, along with other sons to visit a few places of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes in Bengal. Arriving late one evening on the outskirts of Kulinagram, a settlement whose former inhabitants were very dear to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the father and sons were accorded repose in a temple. Next morning, upon entering the hamlet, they were asked by some local residents where they had come from and where they had spent the night. Upon hearing the answer, the village men amazedly said, "How could you have slept? No one can stay there peacefully, for it is haunted by a Brahma Rakshasa who pitches stones and brick bars at anyone passing by after dusk." Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur replied, "Yes, that ghost did try to disturb us, but I loudly chanted the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and he went away." Learning that he was Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, whom they had already knew of, some having read his books, the villagers became most Obeisant? O-B-E-I-S-A-N-T. Most. Obeisant. Whatever that means. And further questioned. Respectful. We'll just, question. How did you quell that ghost? By chanting Hare Krishna. Previously, he was the priest of the temple, and he chanted Hare Krishna throughout his life. How did he become a ghost? And how could your chanting expel him? Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur told them that the priest must have vibrated only the syllables of the name, thus producing a physical lip-deep sound lacking spiritual essence. When Bhaktivinoda asked about his character, they replied, he was not good. He committed many sinful acts, but he used to recite Harinam almost constantly. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur further explained why the priest could not have been truly chanting. Quote, sinful people, with the intention of acquiring wealth and reputation, make a show of kirtan. But that is merely cheating. As stated by Srila Jagadananda Pandit, Prema Vivarta, Asadhu Sange Bhai, Krishna Nam Nahi Hai, Namaskara Bahiraya Hate Nama Kabo Naya. Those not in the association of authentic devotees cannot actually utter the holy names, even though they may externally vibrate the sound Krishna. That is not actually the name of Krishna. The name of Krishna is not different from him, and thus completely pure and spiritual. Krishna Nama does not allow himself to be plundered by materialists. This man never actually chanted Hare Krishna, only Nam Aparad. Because of severe offenses to the holy name, he became a ghost. The man then asked, can he ever be released from that wretched condition? Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, yes, if he hears the real name or the proper explanation of Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam from a bona fide sadhu who has genuine connection with Krishna, then he can be liberated from ghostly existence. Therefore, all troubles caused by the specter ceased. The villagers then realized that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was himself that caliber of exalted sadhu whose pure kirtan had the power not only to exorcise unyielding ghosts, but to deliver the entire universe from the maelstrom of material life. So that's just a little addition from yesterday's discussion. And now we'll continue with text 31. And text 31, the ladies have finished doing what the ladies were doing. Now into the scene comes Nanda. Meanwhile, all cowherd men, headed by Nanda Maharaj, returned from Mathura. And when they saw on the way the gigantic body of Putana lying dead, they were struck with great wonder. I bet they were. There's the cowherd men struck with wonder. The cowherd men were astonished, perhaps by mistake. A mountain with unclipped wings fell from the sky and crushed all the huge trees. Perhaps, under the spell of some witch, we have come to the wrong place. Or perhaps this is just a magical illusion. In this way, many doubts arose in their minds. This reminds me of When Mother Yashoda saw the universe within Krishna's mouth, she began to consider what it might be. Is it this? Is it that? Brajvasi speculate too. They were astonished because Vasudev's words about disturbance had come true. Now there's some nice explanation of this in detail from Gopal Champu, and I'd like to read that. On returning to Vraja, Nanda and others saw from afar the corpse of Putana. In loud voices, they discussed amongst themselves as follows: "We cannot see the form clearly because of many crows flying about. It has turned to ashes by the rays of the hot sun. It is funny because many joints sticking out. It is decorating part of this huge, thick forest. It appears like a cloud stuck to the earth from far off. We should think of Vasudev's warning about future disturbances in Vraja. Perhaps it is a mountain whose wings Indra cut off, which, regaining its wings, and then fell here." Speculating in many ways and seeing directly the body of the she-demon, they showed fear, humor, and curiosity. After a few moments, some came close and described it. Doubts were resolved, and reality dawned on them. That dreadful form, which had appeared nearby, spread fear in their hearts. They understood that the body of Putana had fallen in Vraja. Hearing that Putana had taken his child and that the child killed her, Nanda fainted, but immediately came to consciousness. He was like a person who, bitten by a snake, quickly applies special mantras to save himself. With amazement, he heard, saw, and experienced everything. First he heard, Putana's body fell down and spread out for 6 kroshas, 12 miles. The body was 2 kroshas wide. That's 4 miles wide. And 1 krosha high. Whew. She was big. She fell outside of Vraja. Her length could be covered in 2 praharas, walking in one direction, and her width could be covered by walking 1 prahara in the other direction. No living beings except the trees were harmed. That's Gopal Champu. Text 32. Nanda Maharaj and the other Gopas exclaimed, "My dear friends, you must know that Anakundundubi, Vasudev, has become a great saint or a master of mystic power. Otherwise, how could he have foreseen this calamity and predicted it to us?" It's a nice image to go along with the slide. Nanda, looks like Nanda's got a umbrella, parasol, walking along with 2 others. Srila Prabhupada's purport reads, "This verse illustrates the difference between Kshatriyas and innocent Vaishyas. By studying the political situation, Vasudev could see what would happen whereas Nanda Maharaj, the king of the agriculturalists, could only guess that Vasudeva was a great saintly person and had developed mystic powers. Jiva Goswami writes, they talked amongst themselves in astonishment. Nunam indicates conjecture. Vasudeva was not like this before. Now he has become a real sage because he makes authoritative statements like the sages. Reply, but we cannot see the symptoms of a sage in him. Then perhaps he is a master of yoga, fixed on internal worship. The words sashjataha and samasa both have the affix sam. That's just a Sanskrit technical point. They indicate being fixed. What is the reason for saying this? He saw these disturbances. He is on a Kundundubi. The drums announced his qualification for this at his birth. Or, in a previous birth, perhaps he was a sage or yogi. Now he has been born as Vasudeva. Because he is omniscient, he spoke in this manner. This is how they thought. Thus, they were astonished. So, again, the science of rasa, this is a secondary rasa, this astonishment. And these other emotions they're feeling, they're in life of pure devotion, be prepared for all varieties of ecstasy that may look something other than ecstasy. It may look like just bewilderment and whatever else it might look like. They're experiencing waves of ecstasy. Here's Vishwanath writing, certainly, Nunam, Vasudeva is a rishi in our family. Being all-knowing, he has predicted correctly. Through practice of Ashtanga Yoga, Yogesha, he has developed the eyes to see the future. He shines again preeminently. Preeminently, so it's spelled wrong. We'll correct it. So now we're going to hear something further from Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Wait a minute. Jiva Goswami writes, it's almost verbatim with what Sanatana Goswami writes. They talked amongst themselves in astonishment. Nunam indicates conjecture. We read this. Okay. Here's the next verse. Text 33. The inhabitants of Vraja, you see at the bottom, the inhabitants of Vraja cut the gigantic body of Putana into pieces with the help of axes. Then they threw the pieces far away, covering them with wood, and burned them to ashes. Ooh. Cobra. Merely killing a serpent is not sufficient. After it is killed, it must be cut to pieces and burned. And then the danger will be over. Putana resembled a great serpent, and therefore the cowherd men took the same precautions by burning her body to ashes. Another painting of chopping with axes the body in the upper left, and the bottom left is burning to pieces. In the upper right, that's Nanda pulling on his chin, wondering, wow, look at that. And the other cowherd men, very interesting, in the lower center, it looks like her leg carried on a stick. But she had a big body. At the order of Upananda and others, lower rank men, Vraja Ukasa, burned up the body completely for fear that it would come to life again. The influence of poisonous creatures is extinguished when their bodies are burned up, which Prabhupada commented also. So we're going to go to descriptions about the burning of the body. This starts with Ananda Vrindavan Champu, I think. After this, all the residents of Braja cut the gigantic body of Putana into pieces and piled it up with wood for burning. When all the limbs of Putana's body were burning, the smoke emanating from the fire created a good aroma, like aguru and sandalwood. This aroma was due to her being killed by Krishna. This means that the demon Putana was washed of all her sinful activities and attained a celestial body. When all the inhabitants of Vrindavan smelled the good aroma from the smoke of burning Putana, they inquired from each other, "Where is this good flavor coming from?" And while conversing, they came to understand that it was the fumes of the burning Putana. They were very fond of Krishna, and as soon as they heard that the demon Putana was killed by Krishna, they offered blessings to the little child, out of affection. From Ananda Vrindavan Champu. Meanwhile, the Brijbasis chopped up the gigantic body of Putana, took it away, and burned it from a distance, that burning body, spewing forth deep black smoke and many sparks, looked like a monsoon cloud illuminated by streaks of lightning. Because Krishna had touched Putana, the smoke rising from her burning body filled every planet up to Vaikuntha with a sweet aroma. Everyone enjoyed that fragrance, which smelled like incense of aguru and sandalwood. The rain falling through that fragrant smoke saturated the earth with a sweet smell. He's so poetic, so beautiful. And finally, for this morning's class, Garga Samhita, very short. When, just returned from Mathura city, the Gopas headed by Nanda saw the horrible Putana, they were overcome with fear. Cutting it up with axes and making many pyres by Sri Yamuna's shore, the Gopas burned her body. And that's it for this morning. Now, I'm anticipating that purposefully, because there's been very lively and relishable discussions after the classes, I'm going to go slowly, which means that today is Sunday, the end of the Thanksgiving holiday, and I'm not going to finish. We'll continue Monday, etc., until some point in time we'll be finished. So we heard about yesterday, we heard about the gopis Nanda and the cowherd men that went with him to Mathura weren't there yet. So we heard what the gopis did, and we heard what the gopas did, and of course several descriptions about the demigods being very pleased because this wicked Putana is now killed. But the killing of Putana is, although that's the title of the chapter and the topic that we're speaking about, it's incidental in comparison to the ecstasy stimulated within the hearts of the Brijbasis. So if you want to stimulate ecstasy in somebody you love, you can bring some danger. You don't have to worry about dangers will come anyways. But you can then support the Krishna consciousness of those who are Krishna conscious so that they can experience a rasa, a taste, a mellow. And rasa, we should know, it's not always globulins. It's sometimes nimba fruit. It's sometimes something that's not, you have to acquire a taste for. Something that looks like, oh no. And then depending upon the depth of your Krishna consciousness, if your absorption in Krishna increases, that's good. And that emotion, that's a type of rasa, even in this material realm. Even in this material realm. I found it very astonishing. I was very astonished by Bhaktivinoda Thakur's writing in Krishna Samhita that even conditioned souls can have antardarshan of Krishna's pastimes. It certainly made it easier to understand what is meant when it says Krishna never leaves Vrindavan, although he left Vrindavan. He entered the heart, so how did he enter the heart? He entered the hearts of the residents of Vrindavan in the form of antardarshan. And it's becoming one of my favorite chapters in the 10th canto, chapter 35, the Songs of the Gopis, I believe it's called. And they're experiencing Krishna's pastimes, something like Sanjaya is experiencing the Bhagavad Gita, although he's not on the battlefield. This Prabhupada calls it spiritual television, or antardarshan. So although Krishna is here and there, they're experiencing the pastimes of Krishna, and they're feeling the feelings of different residents of Vrindavan, even the inanimate objects, what to speak of the animate objects, and the cows and the birds and the everyone, everything, Mother Yasoda and the cowherd boys, and it's like they're super soul. They're in the hearts of those personalities, experiencing what they're experiencing, or vicariously experiencing, or having antardarshan, even when he's not there. And in that section, it's said that they even see, like, with their eyes. They see with the eyes of love. Because they're so ecstatic. They see. Now, it's beyond our... We can talk about it, but it's certainly beyond our experience, and equally so beyond our comprehension. So how do you understand something that's beyond your comprehension? At least we can know authoritatively through Shabda. From those that are there, they send a broadcast signal. And the broadcast signal, if your receiver's on, you can experience through sound. And that's the process of what we've been engaging in. And each person, each one of us, and any past and future generations hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, it's going to strike the heart in some way. And so you could describe the whole spectrum of responses that happen when it strikes the heart in some way. And it goes way over here and it goes way over there. The nature of most elevated persons who have become fully purified or are fully purified is just by hearing the sound vibration. This is Kapila Dev's teachings to Devahuti about Shuddha Bhakti. The mind just goes. And the mode of goodness, one cultivates that because it'll get you to that place of Shuddha. And the mode of in Shuddha Bhakti, there's no effort. In fact, the mind can't be restrained, like the river Ganges flowing downstream during rainy season. You can't restrain the Ganges. Put your hand out or build a dam and just go over the dam. You can't stop the Ganges going downstream in rainy season. The mind of a pure devotee can't be checked by anything. And so our experience of hearing Krishna's pastimes will be different depending upon the consciousness that we're carrying at that moment, which can change for the next moment and the next moment. Like the cowherd men, it's being described, considering this, considering that, considering the other thing. In one sense, it's a no-no. You're not supposed to speculate, but they're not knowing, which is good. It's part of their position. They're not knowing Krishna's divinity. So how to explain this? And it's astonishment, ecstasy. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And the base position for them, we'll hear as we go forward, how Nanda then he comes in for a landing. He goes back to his sthayi bhava, his parental affection. And he picks up Krishna and he's Krishna's father. Mother Jasoda went through this and that and the other thing, and then this ecstasy. So the pastime of difficulty in Braja is to stimulate ecstatic love. And the pastime for obstacles on our path is to help us take deeper shelter of the personality of Godhead. If we're on the trajectory of cultivation, deeper cultivation of Krishna consciousness, that's where the heart goes. And there certainly can be other emotions. There are things that are being processed by devotees here and there that I'm aware of. And, it's tribulation, or it's uncertainty, or it's this, or it's that. We're not Brijbasis, but by following the path of Brijbasis, let our consciousness just go to taking deeper shelter of Krishna. That's the intention behind hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, the cleansing of the worldly tribulations and accepting these transcendental ones and understanding the ways of transcendental life. We'll say it the same thing in a different way. When one's consciousness becomes absorbed in Krishna Katha, the worldly tribulations are a little blip on the screen. Say it the opposite. When the absorption in Krishna is absent, the tribulations in the material world become a mountain and all-consuming, and struggle, and so it's not that we don't, as devotees, we don't see what's what, and we don't act on what's what, making choices of how we're going to respond to what's what. But our life doesn't become consumed in the temporary and making the best of the bad bargain. We make the best of a bad bargain, but that's not the essence. The essence is our relationship with Krishna and absorption in Krishna. And this, just as we heard this position of ghosts, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the third example that we read, chanting the pure holy name or hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita from a proper source, then all misgivings can be gone. Ghosts and all the other long list of things that we heard in the previous evening, gone. Their influence is gone. And ghosts are very fleeting. They can just go away. And they may come back, but they go away. Because they can't stand. Like turning on light, darkness is gone. You utter proper sound vibration or hear proper sound vibration. Not like the priest that was doing all sinful things and constantly chanting. Even constantly chanting. Nam aparad is continuous sinful activity on the strength of chanting. So we don't want to become ghosts. We don't want to become owls. We don't want to become anything other than somehow or another in this lifetime direct our attention to the personality of Godhead with real absorption by hearing of the nature of these personalities who are Krishna's eternal associates, his Nitya Siddha associates. That's a safe path to move on. It's been very joyful spending this time. I'm looking forward to going through the rest of the chapter. Let's see if there's some discussion. It's 18 minutes after the hour. Mahamantra?
Press once. Guru Maharaj, during sharing the holy name with others, I come across many people with so much distress. So I used to encourage them, when you chant the holy name, the klesha will be mitigated. So am I encouraging them to chant to commit offenses against holy name?
Why do you ask that? Chanting happy.
Yeah, that was my motive. But what if they take it?
Well, will they? They will.
Yes.
It's not a maybe. We want to be happy, and so this will help you become happy. And what's blocking the happiness is your misery, and the misery will be mitigated. It's not. Is that your? Are you asking? Is that one of the 10 offenses?
Yeah, am I encouraging?
Is that what you're asking? Yes. Is that one of the 10 offenses? No. You can add, and that day will come when you won't be even thinking like that.
Yes.
4 types of pious men render service unto me. So if someone renders service to Krishna, and they're even being encouraged, you want, then worship Krishna.
Yes.
It's not offensive. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else?
I have one.
Yes?
Guru Maharaj, when the cobra picture came up, I remembered something, a farmer hitting the cobra with a farm equipment, and severing the head, but I was watching both the body and the head were like moving for more than 2 hours. So when I remember that, like the Putana ran away even after the life was reset.
Yeah, I was thinking about that further also. Yeah. Not finished until the body is burned.
Yes. And they do burn the cobra bodies in the village.
Yeah. Yeah. Her prana was gone, but she was... Okay. Anything else? No? Online? Okay.
This question is from Ananda Vrindavan Mataji. This is in regards to one statement from Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava about a devotee just mouthing the syllables as he was chanting without the blessings of Vaishnavas or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. We always hear about how one must simply hear the sound of the holy name to chant properly. But obviously, there is more. And one's attitude, relationships with the Vaishnavas plays a role in our ability to approach the holy name. I wanted to hear a bit more on this from you, Guru Maharaj, on this topic. Specifically, what is the special ingredient we must bring into our chanting from our Vaishnava relationships to really please Nama Prabhu?
Well, a tendency, even when doing the right thing, is to forget the source of your knowing what is the right thing. I'll explain. For example, somebody comes, I've watched this like consistently. I've got a problem. What do I do? Here's some options. Oh, I like that one. And then they run off and forget the connection of where they heard from. And they go into doership mode, and then it goes back down again. So Vaishnava relationships means you don't forget the connection with Krishna through Sangha of the Vaishnavas. So it's specific to the question, or the context of her question. It's not just making sounds, but hearing the sound, and hearing the sound originally and being instructed from a saintly person. Try, and you'll fail. Try to be attentive in chanting without that sense of connection with those who are giving the instruction and are chanting attentively. It won't happen. It's an endless struggle. It goes up and down, but it's an endless struggle. So that's my response to her question. While being an instrument of an instruction, don't forget the source of the instructor, or the source of the instruction. And because ultimately the source of the instruction is Krishna, don't forget Krishna while you're carrying out the activity of fulfilling an instruction. Otherwise, you're on your own. And it's very lonely being on your own. It's not, the empowerment is not going to happen, which is what Bhaktivinoda is saying, and I think that's what you're asking. Don't try to become Krishna conscious without sadhu sangha. And if you take sadhu sangha, don't take the advantage of what that sadhus have to offer without the gratitude in your heart and connection in your heart with the sadhus from whom you receive something. That's impersonal.
This question is from Taruni Radha Mataji. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, can you please explain the thought process of the elderly gopis and Mother Yashoda from the perspective of spiritual possessiveness?
Spiritual what?
Possessiveness.
Possessiveness.
While dealing with Krishna, each feels that Krishna is mine, yet they allow each other to serve him without envy.
So her question is, what is their experience of possessiveness?
What are their thought processes while from the perspective of spiritual possessiveness? What do they think?
The thought process from this perspective of spiritual possessiveness. Well, let's remember that they, the Brajvasis, don't have a sense that Krishna is the source of everything. For those who have that sense that Krishna is the source of everything, there's one explanation. Well, like spokes coming from a hub, they're all connected to the same hub, so there's no difficulty because the hub is the source of this spoke and that spoke and the other spoke. Or we all have a relationship with Krishna, and it's all part of relationships with Krishna, the big picture of relationships with Krishna, because he's the source of everything. That's Vaikuntha. No anxiety because there isn't that material competition, one against the other. And in the case where they don't know that Krishna is the source of everything, how exalted is their love? Their thought process is simply a thought process of love. And there's no enmity or no envy or none of the contaminations that we know of. It's too well in the material world. We spent some time discussing this yesterday evening when with that verse in beautiful painting that showed Mother Jasoda sitting in front of Mother Jasoda's house, and the gopis were surrounding her, and the kind of affection they have for her, like the kind of affection the young gopis have for Radha. There's no envy. There's no, consciousness is Shuddha. Shuddha Bhakti is Shuddha. There's no material contamination. So their thought process is that the possessiveness is Krishna is mine, and it doesn't exclude others. It's pure love. It's Shuddha Bhakti. That's their thought process.
Taruni Radha Mataji's second question. In one of the slides, our acharyas have compared Vritrasura, who is a devotee in a demon's body, to Putana, who is a demoniac person in the demon's body, as they both reached the ultimate destination. From this, can I conclude that Putana is an extremely special soul or a demon?
Well, no. I mean, yes, but that's not what she is. But that's not what. At least we just when we discussed this, which Acharya, Vallabha Acharya, commented, what we are to understand from this comparison is that as Vritrasura got knocked down but got up again, and got knocked down, got up again, but when he was struck by the thunderbolt of Indra, he didn't get back up again. And he attained the spiritual world. So the comparison has that connotation. When Putana was killed by Krishna, she didn't get back up again. That was his realization or commentary on that. But yeah, back to your question, she's special. Very unique, not special, unique in the attainment that she received. We don't hear it too many like that. But Krishna wanted, and so Krishna delivered her the way that he delivered her.
This question is from Sri Radhika Mataji. On the one hand, we hear that even if one chants the holy name in jest, he is liberated from sins. Yet, the story from Bhakti Siddhanta Vaibhava speaks of how the person chanting Namabhas had to become a ghost. How to understand this?
It wasn't Namabhasa, it was Namaparat. That's how we understand it. If I've understood the question correctly. Go ahead.
And this question is from Raghunandan Prabhu. This pastime of deliverance of Putana is bringing out the most merciful nature of Krishna.
Yeah.
Despite the many shortcomings, he is always looking to do the best for the person that he is interacting with. He is perfect. I'm not perfect and I have many shortcomings. I deal with people that have their own shortcomings. What should be the proper mood in such interactions?
Try to be an instrument, even though we have our shortcomings. That's the mood. May Krishna bless you that you become better and better instrument. That's the mood. That's it. Anything further?
There's one more question.
Okay. Two more.
One more question. Is experience of rasas always a joyful experience, although for an onlooker may be misery?
Yes. Sorrow is a joyful experience from the rasa perspective, because it strengthens the connection with the object, Krishna or personality of Godhead. And that's an ecstatic experience, feeling more connected. If the connection is not strong, it'll be then a material emotion. And the mode of darkness becomes stronger, or the mode of passion becomes stronger, anger, something. It's all about the connection with Krishna. Life, spiritual life, progressive spiritual life. Okay, we're done. Thank you. Prabhupada ki jai.